So to get started, I have already drawn my circles and my guidelines. If you'd like more information on the sizes of those, you can check the description below and everything will be there. So I'm going to outline with my 05 marker with the first line, and on top of that line, our first design is going to be some round tip petals, and I'm keeping it the same size as the next guideline allows me to do so, and this is generally what we're going to keep doing until the designs get bigger. And once we're finished doing those designs, in the gaps we will then draw some small pointy triangles, and I either like to do the triangles in the gaps or I like to do small circles, as you guys have seen me do before in the past. And once that design is finished, inside the petals we are then going to draw some lines, and I do apologize that my hand is in the way. I didn't realize it when drawing, but sometimes I get carried away and I draw this way because it's easier, but you can't really see what I'm drawing, so I do apologize for that. Our next design is going to be going with the shape of the guideline, and it's going to be very boxy, and we're going to be drawing some petals with these shapes. And once we're finished with that, on top of it we are going to make the shape rounder, or at least give it the illusion that it is round. And if this tutorial is too fast, feel free to pause it or slow it down at any time with the YouTube video settings on this video so that you guys can follow. Once that is finished, we are then going to use our 01 marker, and these are Staedtler markers, by the way, if you guys are wondering, but I'm going to use my 01 marker and I'm going to add some very thin lines to the inside of those petals. And after that, I'm then going to shade in the small triangles that we did before in the gaps of the round tip petals earlier, and this is just going to help add some contrast and bolden up the center point. And because we are shading, this means that we are going to have to shade in some other designs later on, just so that the stripes and the blackness is all evened out. So we'll get there and I'll explain everything. So I'm going to be using my compass to outline the line next, and I'm going to be adding another line on top of that, which is going to give it a border. Now we have a space to ourselves, and inside that space, in the gaps that we have, I'm going to be drawing some small circles, and afterwards we're then going to be drawing some really thin round tip petals, and this may take a while, so take your time if you're freehanding it. I'm doing it just for the practice of it, but if you'd like, you can outline it first with pencils and then go over it with marker, however you choose. When that is finished, we are then going to draw some tall triangles on our directional guidelines. I'm not really sure if the lines are called that. I just call them that because their lines are going in every direction. But we're going to draw some tall triangles on top of it, and I'm doing it with my pen just because it seems a bit easier and a lot faster. And once we have those down, I'm then going to add a line in the middle, and later on we're going to go back and shade one of the sides in, just to kind of make it a little bit more interesting. So I was hoping that I could draw the whole thing with my markers, but unfortunately I can't. I was really trying to work with perfection, or somewhat perfection, so I decided to whip out my trusted Faber-Castell pencil. So jumping 4 lines ahead, we are then going to draw our next design, which is going to be some triangle shaped petals, and it's going to be the same width that we have to work with here. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to draw a border inside, and we're going to keep this line very thin. And once we have drawn this design and all the petals, we're then going to outline everything. And normally people sketch everything out first and then go back and outline everything because it's a little bit faster, but for me and for this video, I wanted to show you guys each step that we do, and it's going to be hard to show you if everything is in pencil. Once we're finished with those lines, I'm then going to sketch another border inside of this design, and we're going to outline it as well. Notice that we now have a gap available on both the top and bottom of this new design, and we're actually going to use the top gap, and inside we're going to draw petals that curve with the shape itself. If you need to, you can sketch this part out. Feel free to do that if it makes it easier for you. But as we draw these petals, they will curve against the borders that we have, and I personally love this design. So we're going to go ahead and do this to all of the petals and then move on to our next design. After that, we're then going to use the marker and we're then going to give the bottom a thin border. And I find that giving anything a thin border really helps your design stand out a lot. And on the bottom of this, we're going to leave that space white. I'm going to then use my prismacolor marker and I'm going to shade in this area because we have a lot of contrast going on in the center, so we have to go ahead and bring some contrast out. So I'm just going to fill this area in just to fill in for the contrast that we need. If you want, you can add in some other designs if you wish. It's up to you. I'm also going to shade in this area, and as you can see, it's looking a lot better now that we have some dark areas. Afterwards, I'm then going to use my pen and shade in the gaps that we have left from these petals, and I'm really glad I decided to do so as this area is much more defined. Using this point as our next place to start, I've gone ahead and added a circle to each point, and on top of that we will then draw a hump that will have a thin border, and on top of that we will then draw some round tip petals. Now that we have some borders, I'm going to fill them in with my Prismacolor marker. So we're going to color in this border, and in addition to that, we're also going to color in these circles. From there, I'm going to use my pencil and I'm going to sketch out some tall, pointy petals. And at this point, the designs are going to get bigger as we progress with the mandala itself. So one of my commenters on one of the mandala drawing videos asked me, do you have to draw the guidelines in order to draw a mandala? And technically, no, you don't need it. If you're really good with drawing it by hand, you can completely skip drawing guidelines to begin with. But for me, personally, I like to draw the guidelines just because I like to make sure all the petals are neat, and since I haven't perfected drawing with my hand solely, I like to use guidelines. So no, you don't have to use guidelines if you're comfortable without doing so. But to get started, what you guys have seen me do is, now that we have the pointy petals in place, in the gaps where the petals meet, I have drawn some triangles, and they're very thin and very pointy, and they're the same height as the pointy tip petals. And now I'm just going to be outlining them with my marker. On the tips of these petals, I'm then going to draw a teardrop, and on the sides of it, I'm going to give it a border, and we're going to do this throughout the entire mandala. And I like adding these teardrops in to help fill in some spaces, and if you wanted to, you can even do some grading effect by doing some stippling. I have been really into stippling these past few days. I have not been able to get enough of it, and now that I have better markers, I can do so just fine. So if you want, you can practice stippling on these big areas if you wish. For this design though, I'm going to put some circles in the gaps that we have available on top of the petals, and then under the teardrop that we just did, I'm going to add some dots as well as a dot inside. When that is finished, I'm then going to color in the gaps that we have available, and now we're going to start coloring in the right side of these triangles here. Later on, we are going to go back to the very first triangles that we drew earlier, and we're going to color the left side since we colored the right side for the second triangles that we have. And after that, I'm going to be using my 05 marker, and I'm going to be outlining the whole mandala in a circle. And when that is finished, I'm going to be using my pencil, and under this design, I'm then going to be drawing some clouds, or small humps should I say, and I'm going to be drawing 4, and I'm going to try to keep the same number for each petal just so that everything looks unified and organized. And when that is finished, I'm going to be using my 03 marker, and I'm going to be drawing some lines, some very thin lines in the spaces that we have here. Afterwards, since these petals were looking a little bit bare, I decided to add some lines in the middle of it, and I think it came along really well. And it goes with the center point too, since we also have petals that have lines inside of them as well. After that, I'm going to be using my thick marker to add some contrast, and I'm going to outline the whole circle, and this just overall helps bring in some boldness since we have a lot of bold lines in the middle. And again, this is the area that I was talking about, the triangles. We are then going to color in the left side just to bring everything together, and I'm really glad that I did that because I felt like there was something missing. So whenever you feel like there's something that needs to be done, just take a step back from your artwork and just see what needs to be done, what's missing. So using my pencil, because this area still seemed very open, I decided to add some swirly petals, if that makes sense. I'm not really sure what they're called. I just decided to draw them, but you can use your pencil if you want for that part, and then I outlined everything. And on top of that same petal, I'm going to be adding a fairly round triangle, and it's going to outline the tip of this petal, and we're going to do the same thing with the triangles that we have. I'm going to be adding a border to that as well, and on top of that big triangle that we just finished, I decided to draw a circle on top of it. When that is finished, we're then going to be drawing some pointy tip petals in between these designs, and if you have the guidelines in place, this will help you make sure that your petals come out evenly. And using my prismacolor marker, I'm then going to be outlining all of these petals, and I'm going to be very careful as to not mix the ink with the other drawings because those are very thin designs and I don't want the ink to smear it by any chance. So I wasn't able to record it, but the circles on top of the triangles we just finished, I managed to draw a triangle that had a border on top of it, and right now in the petals that we just finished, I'm going to be drawing that same design that we drew earlier, which is the petals that curve. And you can sketch this out with pencil first if you wish, and then once those are done, I'm going to be doing a line in the middle of those petals, and on the tip of this petal I'm going to be adding a circle, and then on each side I'm going to be also drawing another circle as well, and on the sides of this petal, as you can see from the left petal, which is completed. So we're going to go ahead and draw this design on all of the petals, and when that is finished, we're then going to be using our Prismacolor marker, and we're going to be shading in these borders right here just to complete the whole mandala. Then once that's completed, we're then going to use that same marker and we're going to add some dots to the tips of these petals here. And afterwards, because this area seemed like it was missing some contrast, I decided to shade in these triangles, and I'm really happy I did so because now we have a few rows that have that even consistency of contrast and darkness. After that, we have completed this mandala. What do you guys think? I hope you all enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, feel free to rate, comment, and subscribe for more. I upload every Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. I'll see you guys soon. Bye!